Hey, Mike, thanks so much for being on the show. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Adam. Looking forward to the chat.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am the Vice President of Sales and Operations, or the General Manager for North America for Eviivo. We're a cloud-based, SaaS-based property management software platform that's been around since 2005. Worldwide headquarters is in London, UK. Been managing a little north of 20,000 properties for our owners and managers out there across 52 disparate property types, everything from hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals. We've even got people that are doing marinas and houseboats, etc., that are using our platform.
It's a crazy landscape right now between hotels and short-term rentals and hybrid properties. The landscape it's exciting. I think it's a little frightening for the old-time hotel people, but there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Embrace the change.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'd like to get your perspective a little bit on the booking ecosystem right now. A lot of change has been going on the last couple of years. New players coming in, new strategies being employed. What's your perspective on the lay of the land right now?
Obviously, our industry was adversely affected, probably more so than just about any other industry out there, by the 18-month pandemic. But there's still, some true touch points that are still true today that were true prior to that. The online travel agencies that are out there, you absolutely should continue to embrace them, but you should be embracing them maybe more so in a more confined manner than what you had in the past. And we can get into details about that, but we have some very specific best practices that we teach our customers as they get onboarded about how to leverage the breadth of reach, the breadth of or depth of their marketing budgets, if you will, for those online travel agencies, but how to kind of take those guests that come in from them and kind of create a good rapport with them, a good guest experience. And then from there, you can kind of redirect them to become direct customers of yours, direct guests for future potential bookings.
Yeah, it's an interesting. The direct booking puzzle has been an issue for a long time, and a lot of properties, there's a lot of brain power has gone to trying to figure out how to reverse the share steal that's been happening on the OTA side for years. And for those that don't know what OTA is, online travel agency, Expedia, Booking.com, Airbnb, those guys. With the leisure segment, I'm going to put air quotes around coming back, because it was a predictable blip in the summer. It's not necessarily, this time of year is always a little tough for leisure. Usually that's filled by business and group travel. I guess is a long-winded way of saying, since those two segments they've come back a little bit. Business travel probably more so than group. Depends on where you are in the country. But primarily, nothing's really back. But leisure is the thing that you can kind of count on right now. And it feels to me like there might be a propensity to lean a little bit harder into the OTA realm, because you need to fill those rooms on a Tuesday and Wednesday night that would usually be picked up by group or business travel. And I guess it's a long-winded way of coming around to the point where I've had conversations with people about whether you can actually run a hotel that is primarily OTA driven. And you just sort of succumb to it. You just say, you know what, forget it. They're stealing share. I can't seem to get direct booking people coming back or coming to my hotel, and I'm having a really hard time with my CRM and my after stay marketing to try to hook people after they stay with me. So I'm just gonna go all in on the OTAs. Do you have you have any thoughts about? And I know that your company pushes people away from doing that, but I guess from the perspective of kind of where that small hotelier is right now, forget about the big brand. Is there any validity to that thought process, or is there really something that hotel owner, that hotel manager can do to try and turn the ship around?
It's funny, as you were going through the question, I was going through multiple conversations that I've had with property owners that are on our platform over the last several months. I think that the thinking needs to be shifted into kind of a 2-lane highway, if you will. That first lane, you're saying they're taking a higher share of my booking dollar. The online travel agencies are now charging me more than they used to. Some of the bigger ones are also, in Europe, have already kind of completely increased that number by a dramatic effect and taken all of the customer or guest fees, I should say, out of the equation, and so it's all on the property owner. And so that's only incensing those that are looking at what the online travel agents have been doing to them more. My recommendation to them is they're not doing anything to you. Take away the victim type mantra and thought process there, and embrace what's happening. If you literally, people that sign up with our platform all the time ask me, well, which online travel agencies would you recommend that I sign up to? I say every last one of them. Mm-hmm. Now, you can manage them both from a macro and a micro basis as to how you want them to work on your behalf. That's what people are not doing. They're literally going, oh my God, I was going to get a booking on that weekend in July anyway. Why am I having to pay Expedia XYZ commission for that? Well, because you could have done a closeout for the weekends or closeout for the high season and really have them focus exclusively on your low seasons, your middle of the week bookings, etc. So you can manage them better. But then the other part of it is, you absolutely, once you get that guest the first time, you absolutely should be completely nurturing that guest experience, completely nurturing that communication process from pre-arrival to long after they've departed, so that they want to come back to you direct. It's an easy pivot to get them to go to your website after you've built that rapport and that relationship with them, if you've done a good job of giving them a good guest experience. So look at that first part as a marketing dollar, leveraging the fact that they have many more marketing dollars than you do, mm-hmm. and then you convert them to the lifetime value guests through some of the tools that we and others give you to make that happen.
Yeah, that's a really great point, and that's the missing piece. And I also think that that's the piece that is, it's the hardest to, it's easy to talk about. The theory is like, I understand what you're saying. I just don't know how to put it into practice. I don't know how. And I'm speaking the royal I, as you're running your property, you're trying to get occupancy, and someone starts talking about you need to start remarketing to people that were here. You need to hit them with offers that are contextual and that make sense to them, and it's highly individualized. Gone are the days of putting out a bed and breakfast package. Decades gone is that. But my point is like, long are the days of just doing generic packages and hoping that people book them. It's a totally different world now.
Yeah, you really have to market to a specific user. I had a conversation yesterday with one of my property. She's got multiple properties on our platform, based up in Canada, and she's been with us since April 2019. And there were so many things that, as we were just having a conversation like this, she goes, well, I didn't know you could do that, or I hadn't thought about doing that, or how do I do that in Eviivo? And all of this was something that was easily shareable. So it was something that, I've set up members of my team to kind of help her with that knowledge to move forward. But the bigger issue is they have to build the strategy. They being the property owners, they being the property managers, they have to build the strategy on how they're going to enhance their business where it needs to be enhanced. And then they leverage the tools that we bring to bear to do that. So I can't build that strategy for you. I can make some recommendations that I've seen best practices others have employed, but I can't build that for you. I've got 20,000 properties out there that my platform is on. All we can do is kind of make it more intuitive, make it more comprehensive, make it more affordable and more scalable. And I think we do a good job of that.
Have you seen anything out there, maybe a couple of things that when you're talking to clients, owners that are using your service, in those conversations with that Canadian owner, have you seen anything that have made you go, that's a really good idea?
Yeah, there's some really good things out there that people are employing right now. One is, the dynamics of the people that are actually going to look for making purchases of investment properties are way different than you may think they are. We've done some internal reviews of the folks that are coming to our website based on age, based on sex, based on what type of job vocations they're in. And without sharing all the details, there was some very amazing analytical details that we got, and we're literally pivoting our marketing campaigns based on the buyer persona, based on the searcher persona, and they're not necessarily the same.
No, I guess they aren't. And you bring up another great point: is as a hotel, or as a small vacation rental owner, do you know who your customer is? I think you can't just say, well, we market to everybody. We hope that every leisure guest stays here, or every business travel guest stays here, or every group stays here, because that's just not the case. And going through the process of understanding who your customer is, and it's not so that you can make sure that you've got the right things in the room. That's important, but that's operational. The more important thing is understanding who your person is so that you can send the right message out. You can figure out what it is that's going to resonate with them. What's the offer that's going to resonate with them? Not just not putting together a generic package and hoping somebody buys it. It's, is your property, I'm in Seattle, so are you somewhere in the Pacific Northwest? Near near some breweries. There's a great brewery culture up here, and maybe there's a beer fest going on, and that a segment of your travelers falls into a certain demographic, and the chances are they probably would be interested in doing something like that. So throwing an offer out there to say, come and stay with us and go to this great brewery or this great beer festival, and you can get tickets along the way and maybe book it through your booking process and make a little bit of extra revenue that way. I think that's kind of what we're talking about in a nutshell.
From the people that are watching this podcast, I 110% agree with you that you have to know your customer. We call it KYC at Eviivo, and you need to literally build out your value prop to them based off of who they are or who you want them to be. Also can be another totally different tack. But I actually respectfully disagree. From our perspective, our job is to kind of make the person that's got the one-room condo on the beach to make their property as attractive to their buyers as it is for us to have the person that has the 150-room boutique hotel in New York City who also can use my platform. Their journeys and their marketing efforts are going to be somewhat different, but it's our job to make our platform as intuitive and comprehensive for both of them and affordable and scalable, as I said before. So we do try and make our platform attractive to as many possible users as possible. I've just finished the book, Michael Dell's second book, saying "Play Nice but Win," and it's just a marvelous read on the journey that he went through, both as a young entrepreneur and then as he took the company private and then public again, etc. But the thing that he actually had an interview ask him the same question. You can't be all things to everybody, and he respectfully disagreed. I'm not trying to be all things to everybody. I'm trying to be the right things to as many people as possible when he was building out it as a services company as opposed to a PC company. Mm-hmm. So I think we've done the same thing. We've used technology to kind of make the property owner or property manager's lives easier and to make their properties more attractive and compelling to the right types of guests that they're trying to attract. It's not an easy thing to do, but we think we do it as well as anybody in the industry.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, and I like this term, but I want to dive into it a little bit, the lifetime value of a guest. Lifetime value of a customer it's a long time metric, right?
Mm-hmm,
Used in many industries, but the lifetime value of a guest, that's not really a term or a KPI that we hear much of in the accommodation space. Can you dive into a little bit more about what that means?
It's funny. It's some of the least tech savvy customers that we have either kind of found themselves in this situation or have done a wonderful multi-generational job of kind of through word of mouth and just taking care of people, of getting repeat customers all the time. And their perspective, especially as they've been doing it for a long time, is that I got enough. I've got people to come back to me every year, so I don't need this tool or I don't need this technology, etc. And I look at their occupancy and I go, well, I beg to differ. I think you should be continuing to leverage those relationships to continue and by the way, do it at lowest cost, highest return that you can. We can help you with that too, by the way. But your repeat customers are happening in a season. You're missing having the same dynamic in other seasons, etc. Mm-hmm. So they've kind of fooled themselves into believing I'm taking care of this. I've really done a good job with my customers, and I don't need them to kind of to leverage these other tools. Where in fact it is a finite number that will continue to decrease as generations pass. Right? I mean, yeah, mm-hmm. they keep coming back and their families do, but the younger generations are embracing the technology. So if you're not, you might be missing out on future opportunities. All we're saying.
Mm-hmm. So the lifetime value of a guest would be the value that guest brings to your hotel or your short-term rental over the course of however long you're able to keep them engaged and coming back.
That's exactly correct. But again, it's kind of like, there's an insurance company out there that as long as, you served in the military or a family member served in the military, you can get their plans. The same thing applies here. Yes, you can have your lifetime value tied to that person that came here. Maybe they came here on a business trip, but they absolutely loved, the mountain trails behind you or something like that, and they want to bring their family, and then through word of mouth they can bring, high school reunions or whatever. You can literally mine that particular guest for multiple potential opportunities in the future. We give you things like, promotions, capabilities that you can do kind of a one-to-many shotgun approach, if you will, to kind of attract the folks. You may think that they're a corporate guest, but they wind up bringing their family year after year. And then we also talk about the one-to-one.
Says every business traveler who stays with Marriott.
Yeah, exactly. No, and then we also, again, we give you kind of that same kind of tool set for doing it one-to-one to really understand what are the additional opportunities you can get from that single visit that they gave you that first time, whether it came from a channel partner or not.
Yeah. And I suppose, as I'm thinking through, I'm kind of thinking about this subject here, and I guess, in my experience with loyalty programs, I mean, that's it's easy to track with the right software. If you have a loyalty program, how many times somebody stayed, how much money they're spending every time they stay, and you get this cumulative effect of total revenue generated by this one guest, and I guess that part of lifetime value, even though maybe it's not called that in the hotel space, but that's been tracked for a while. But I guess I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting my head around what the right number might be, and there's no right number because the right metric, because I guess every hotel is going to be different, and every type of guest is going to be different. You might have somebody stay with you every year the same weekend for 30 years, and that's amazing, but they're there for a specific reason, versus somebody who's there quarterly or monthly or weekly. Mm-hmm. So obviously the number's going to be different. What's a meaningful way to measure this for all of those different use cases? Yeah,
so obviously there's a couple different metrics that people can look at. They can look at the lifetime spend of that particular guest over a period of time. They can look at just the number of times they get them to come back. I mean, the first time you get a second visit from anybody, it's a wonderful feeling for a hotelier or a property owner to know I did something right? They came back to me. Yep. I personally have a cabin in, just outside the Smoky Mountains in eastern Tennessee, and that's something that I remember the first time we got a second time visitor. It's a very satisfying and gratifying feeling that I did something right for these people. And there are different metrics that people actually are focused on, and formulas. But just know it doesn't really matter which one you're embracing. What matters is that you're doing the right tactics to even have an opportunity to get somebody that wants to come back to you a second, third, fourth, however many times.
Yeah.
But absolutely, obviously, somebody that comes back every time for 30 years versus somebody that comes back 30 times in 1 year, the person that comes back 30 times in 1 year, that's going to be a much higher lifetime value guest than the other one, because there's still 29 years to go for them, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
There's different ways to kind of slice the apple, but the more important thing, in my opinion, is not what the actual number is that your goal is. It's literally just having the goal, having the practice, having the tactics and strategies to turn those first-time guests into lifetime guests. That's the most important thing to take away from it.
Yeah, and I guess it goes right back to what we started with, right, about getting repeat bookings. It's an unbelievable KPI, and I think a much I don't want to say forgotten about, but it doesn't have the same gravitas as total revenue or ADR does. Getting that person to come back again and again. But on the OTA front, and I just kind of call back to what we started talking about this whole conversation. There's been this concept that was introduced to me not that long ago. That I don't know if you ever have this happen to you, where somebody says something to you, and it's so blindingly obvious that you should have thought about this before.
Of course.
You're like, it sounds so elementary, but you're like, yeah, no, of course, that is how I'm going to do things from now on. And for me, it was using OTAs as a search engine. And there's a stat that something like 50 or 60% of people, when they are searching for a hotel to book on an OTA, they will go to the hotel's website to book, or not to book. I mean, they may go back to the OTA to book, but they want to learn more about the property by going to that property's website directly. And that's the hotel's opportunity to hook them and get them out of that ecosystem. But more importantly, if they do go back to the OTA, hopefully, to your point, you've been able to craft a great experience, and you've got a meaningful enough post-stay communication platform, or whatever you want to call it, where you can get them to come back a second time. That's one of those marketing strategies or tactics that, for me, for some reason, I didn't connect the dots that way up until literally a few weeks ago.
Well, where I was going with a while ago, talking about even the people that are not very tech savvy, they've actually built pretty good practices around getting people to come back and be repeat customers, but they didn't use automation. The automation of doing that means you can scale it, and that's what our tools help them to do. Is literally, it's not the thinking of, I want to make sure that I make a wonderful guest experience for them. That's every host should have that.
Those are table
right?
stakes. Like that.
Absolutely.
You just have to do that.
You're not going to survive if you don't do that.
Right.
But it's automating it, making it kind of the engine that's running on its own, so that when they are on site, you can actually have that personal, intimate type engagement with them, if you will. So having the automation built in to do it is where we come in. Having the plan, like I said before, having the empathetic approach, that needs to be kind of a natural thing for these property owners and managers on its own.
Yeah. Are there any, I hate to say old ways of thinking about this, but are there any maybe outdated perspectives on how to market an accommodation place, whether it's a hotel or short-term rental? And I see those two converging at a rapid clip right now. But are there any outdated ways of thinking about how to get your message out about your property, or how to get people to come back, that people need to change and maybe look at from a different perspective or through a different lens?
I'm actually going to answer that in a way that might surprise you. It's, if you can't beat them, join them, is the mantra I think that we should all employ as property owners and property managers out there that want to kind of embrace the new way and the change that has come upon us from the last 18 months. And one of the biggest companies in the world has done that to your benefit. For as an example, you and I talked about this, I believe, before this podcast, but Google was seeing everybody go to Expedia and Airbnb, but 88 out of 100 searches were starting with them. So instead of just doing their SEO, SEM type of approach, they've enhanced that by giving you, the property owner, very low commission-based structure for them to, as a matter of fact, you can actually tell Google what you want your commission structure to be on the hotel side, to go actually move those people that have been looking at the OTA and then looking at your website. Well, if you're going to go to their website in the first place, let me just kind of direct you, and then I'll give you a big, beautiful map in the middle of the page. I'll give you some pretty pictures for those, and literally, if they do book, you pay me. If they don't, you don't pay me. It's different from their SEO, SEM type strategy of pay per click. So now you can compete right up there with the Airbnbs and the Expedias of the world to get your listing prominently displayed without having to pay a small fortune in marketing through Google. It's a pretty smart play, I think.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I want to put a pin in that because we're just wrapping up the episode here. I'm sure there's people who are going to want to know a little bit more about how to do that, and not to lead the witness here too much, but I'm sure Eviivo can help.
Yeah. So listen, we've been doing this a long time. I've actually looked at some of my competitors, and I found one that's been doing it as long as us. So this is a nascent industry in comparison to others, but we've been embracive of technology from the word go, and we've been embracive of automation from the word go. I myself am both a user of Eviivo and the general manager. I think we offer a platform that makes life easier for the hospitality host, no matter what property you're managing or owning. And I think we have a great way of kind of helping without actually doing the work for our property managers and owners with this platform on an affordable, scalable manner. So if you're interested in learning more, we'd love to have a conversation with you. Just come to Eviivo.com. It's Echo Victor India Victor Oscar.com. Funky way to spell it.
Yeah, I'll link to it in the show notes, too. You can just scroll down on your podcast player. You'll find it right there.
Sounds awesome.
Mike, this was a great conversation. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me again, Ed.